Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Cosmic Ascension Waves of Light, or the call. Today's date is the 22nd of December 2025, and it is 9:07 p.m. here in Ireland. Welcome, everyone. Um, I'm Soma Arar, and we're joined this evening by a very strong, special individual. Um, Olivia James. Please, would you? I'm delighted you're here. Thank you so much for joining
Thank
me.
you.
I am very much looking forward to this, and I have lots of questions for you. I haven't written anything down yet,
Okay.
um, but please do a short introduction to yourself.
Okay. I'm Olivia. Um, I was used in MK Ultra, Monarch, and Project Traveler as a young person, child, all the way up until I was about 40 years old. I was taken off planet at around, I believe it was around 19 to 29. I don't have a direct date, but I was worked in the corporate sector there under Mars Defense Force. I was in Division Mariner. So I worked in the corporate sector doing human resources work with new recruits that were coming into the base. I worked on McCreary Base, which is located in the South Canal region. And it was near a loading dock, and I worked under a general called General Asher. So any of the work I did went up to him. But after I completed my service there, I was sent back to my normal life um, after I did 20 years doing that. And a lot of it was a back and forth. So some of the things I did on Earth, some of the things I did on off planet, depending on where they needed me and what kind of work they wanted me to do. I did a lot of what I consider beta tracking work. They used to call that honeypot. We didn't call it that. We called it beta tracking. And it had a lot of different programming in it. One of them was the Black Widow programming. So I did a lot of that. And I also did a lot of corporate espionage. That's what they used me for. Actually, the Gray Mouse is a type of programming that's particular to me that they had me set up to use for corporate espionage. And we would go into these big, huge businesses and try to either extract information or steal information, change it, something like that.
That's a lot, Olivia.
Yes.
So it's interesting because I I think I'm very similar to you in in having visions because I'm assuming that you do get visions.
Mhm.
And I had one earlier of a black widow, but it wasn't a normal black widow. It was huge. Um, and I know, of course, there's huge spiders on, I think it's Mars, or is it the
Hmm.
moon? No, it's Mars.
Mars.
Yes, thank you. So there's so much I want to cover. But could we, where would you like to start? There's so many questions I have for you. I'll give you
Um,
a little bit of background on myself, but
okay.
I'm just so thankful to be able to connect with you. So my targeting goes right back to childhood. Um, I had this dream where I used to leave my body a lot. I had a lot of trauma, a lot of sexual trauma, rape, poverty, alcoholic mum, blah 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 blah, all of that stuff. And because of all of that, I got very good at leaving my body at a very young age, and it was an escape for me to leave my body, um, because it meant I didn't feel things didn't hurt so much if I wasn't
Yes.
present. So
Hmm.
um, I so I used to leave my body from a very young age, and one of the real dreams I had on the astral plane was I was in this glass building, and I didn't know where it was at the time. Um, Everything was glass, the outside of the building, the inside, just everything was glass, and it was very well lit. And I was with this man, and I must have been about eight, I think, between six or and eight. And I was with this man in the on the astral in the dream, in the real dream, and he was talking to me. He seemed very kind. He seemed very nice. Although looking in hindsight, I wouldn't have said that at all. But I watched a movie a couple of years ago with Daniel Craig, and it was a spy movie. I forget what it's called now. But I saw the building in the movie, and it's actually MI5 building in London.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah, I yeah, yeah, it took me a few minutes to kind of register the significance of it. Um, but so I've had lots of other targeting. I get voice to skull. I was my first targeting was when I was I'll just share this and then I'll shut up. But my first targeting, believe I had started channeling the Pleiadians.
Mm,
But my story is very back to front because I channeled them as a child, but I'd forgotten and then remembered when I started to do shamanic work. I had memories that came back, but I'd already started channeling them as an adult. And around the same time, a man sent me a message on Facebook, and he said, "Hi, um, blah blah blah," and he said something along the lines of, "And I think we should have sex on the astral." And automatically, I don't have much of a filter, so automatically I typed, "Yeah, whatever," because it's what I was thinking.
hmm.
And I hadn't realized at the time that I was um, consenting when I said that in the message because I just thought he was an idiot, you know. I
Yep.
didn't realize, but he did say he worked for NASA, and that evening, so he messaged me saying, "Hi, I think we should have." I mean, he said a lot of other things, but he said, "Hi, I think we should have sex on the astral," and then he put ha ha ha, and then that evening, lo and behold, on the astral, he came and raped me. And I knew it was real because in the morning I was really sore internally, really sore. Um,
Hmm.
and I could see him above me in the dream or the astral. So that's some of the targeting I've had. Um, so of course I get voice to skull, and I get covered in scratches, and you can see my arms there. Um,
Yes.
I get covered in scratches. And sometimes they actually, it's mostly when I'm asleep, but sometimes I actually am awake, and I kind of watch them happen in real time, just appear from nowhere. And so yeah, so please, so for the audience listening, I first discovered Olivia James, I think it was on Rob Khalil interview where she was talking about Project Oblivion. And I was really intrigued because
Hmm.
everything you were saying was things that I've experienced. And I hadn't realized when that there was the actual project, um, Project Oblivion, which covers a lot of the targeting towards starseeds and people in the public
Yes.
speaking out. So I'm going to put myself on mute and
Okay. I wanted to just give a short background so people know how it started for me. And then I'll talk a little bit about some of the things that I did, saw, and how I got into, providing information for people with my remote viewing work. So I always start by saying that I had very interesting parents. My father was recruited very young into military intelligence at about 18 years old from a small town. And he was a code breaker and in military intelligence on the German-Russian border. He was in the Army Security Agency. When he came out of the military, he got involved with some three-letter agencies and doing major substance. Um, I don't know how you call it. I know we can't say the TRAFFICKING word anymore. So
okay.
I'll say smuggling. I'll say smuggling. He got into substance smuggling, very large quantities. And he was a young person. Him and my mother worked together. She did some of the work as well. They would go across the Mexican border to take their substances from there back and forth across the border. They were making quite a bit of money, doing a lot of money laundering, that kind of thing. And the mistake, he was working with a three-letter agency because, like I said, he had been involved in military intelligence and he got hooked up very quickly with what we now call the cartels. But in the days that he was doing it, it was not yet called cartels. It was more like a crime syndicate. So he was doing that kind of work and he made some very heavy mistakes as he became addicted to his own product and he wasn't doing the same type of work as he had been doing before. He got sloppy. He started missing meetings, missing drops, that kind of thing. And they tried to scare him by doing like these different raids. They did one raid and then that didn't really even fix the problem. Then they did a second one where they had threatened to put him in prison for a very, very long time. So he went through this huge public trial in the small town where, and I've seen like the records and everything. So I definitely, that's something that is provable. And at the end of the trial, they just let him go. They let him go and said that they had the wrong person and it was the wrong name, which is just pretty much impossible to happen. And right after that, they gave him a local government job. So they gave a known substance abuser and smuggler a local government job. I thought that was really interesting. And so in doing my work with remote viewing, spirit hosting, I call myself something of a medium. I was able to meet my father. He passed away a long time ago in about 2011. And so I never really knew him well. We were always estranged. He would never really spend a lot of time with me. He didn't really talk to me that much. And now that I've met him again from the spirit world, I'm able to get the real answers, the real truth from
Yeah.
him. And he brought it to me in a certain way that he spoke in his earth voice, which was very narcissistic, very, selfish, greedy type of thing. And it was a gift to me because I needed the truth. No matter how much it hurt me, I needed it. And he did tell me the reason why he didn't want to be around me my whole life is because he thought I was disgusting, because he said he knew what they did to me and that it disgusted him. The way I lived
Oh,
disgusted him. Who I was had disgusted him because and it almost it fell on him because it was his fault. He signed me over in order to stay out of prison. He had to give something up. And what he gave up was me. He allowed them to use me for MK Ultra and other programs. He, in his own mind, thought that he was saving himself and saving, a lot of people by doing that. But actually, he was a coward. He was afraid to go to prison, and he'd rather have his own child harmed to stay out of prison. And that was kind of
so
like the truth of the situation.
so I have a very quick question for you, Olivia.
Yes.
Did you know what he was doing when you were a child?
No, nope, I didn't. I don't remember a lot of it. I do remember some things, because I think I was a toddler, so I didn't have like a lot of significant memory of that particular thing. I do remember being young and having my other parent talk to me about it and tell me things when I was about like 11 or 12 or something like that. So I did kind of learn young about what the real story was, but the real truth about MK Ultra didn't come until about 5 years ago with my own discovery in, meeting my father from the spirit realm. He was one of the first people that contacted me when I was able to break through that wall and get some of my abilities back. He was one of the, and he's become kind of like a spirit guide for me. We've gotten a lot closer. We've been able to move past, that situation. We've been able to move past the issues of it. I kind of understand his position, he understands mine, and to me, it's been great getting to know him, but in a different way.
And so, as you're speaking, I'm wondering, and I have to take my hat off to you and praise you for being so grounded, so articulate, so together. Um, perhaps I'm sure you are because that's how you come across. But I was wondering when you were speaking about your father, I was wondering, well, does it go back further than that? Where,
Yes,
yes, okay,
his mother. his mother, they had tried to do early training on her and experimenting, and she became kind of fried and end up she was seen with somebody as like severe schizophrenia. And then they tried it on a sister of mine, MK Ultra, and it didn't work. She has severe schizophrenia. So it's so interesting that they chose our particular family because, I don't believe from the looks of us and the way we grew up, very poor. After my father gave up his business to stay alive, he had to give up all his money, everything. He didn't. We ended up living pretty poorly after that. So to me, it was a great lesson. And
And sorry, Olivia, would
no, go
you
ahead.
say that it was schizophrenia or voice to skull technology?
At this point, now that my grandmother's dead, I'm not, it could have been voice to skull, because I know what voice to skull is now. And because I've had it happen to me. And of course, if I wouldn't have known what I've known, I would have thought the same thing. Maybe I am schizophrenic. You know what I mean? I would have thought, oh, is this schizophrenia that I'm hearing things? But when I have voice to skull, I don't necessarily get an auditory hallucination, which is very similar to what schizophrenias have, auditory hallucinations. I don't consider the voice to skull auditory. It's more something that's in my mind heard, more of like I call it a mental message because I can hear the message, but it's in my mind, not in my ears.
Yes,
So
same here.
that was a different disconnect, in terms of like I don't believe this is something like that because it's completely different. And I was also getting pictures in my mind with it, along with the mental messages. So and they started that pretty early on. That I think right after my very first hypnosis session, they started. They knew that I think they knew that once I was able to get myself stable in a way enough to tell people about this, that it would become kind of a force. The information that I could give to people would be kind of come alive on its own and become a force of its own. I would let it go and, other people can have it. And, I feel like all the information that all of us are providing could definitely change the world.
I I've several questions for you. Uh, um, please explain about, is there anything else you want to add about your childhood before?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk a little bit because this is really weird. I started to get when I first started to get this information, it came very quickly, and it was coming to me where I became very anxious and very scared and very nervous because I didn't know what it was. And my whole life I had paranormal things, so I thought this was something paranormal. I'm having these memories, seeing things, seeing myself do things that I would could never do, or being in places that I never thought I could be in, and it just didn't make a lot of sense at the time, and I became very anxious. And a lot of it was triggering because the very first thing that triggered me was a new job I had. And it was because it was exactly like the job I was doing on Mars. It was a very human resources type job where I was helping people, find work and that kind of thing. And that's what I did on Mars. And I just had a flush of like anxiety and adrenaline constantly. Like I couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. And that was one of the very first triggers. But I did want to say I was getting distinct memories. So I do have a lot of detail in terms of remembering where I was at when I was put into the MK Ultra program. And it was about 6 or 7. I don't remember the day that I was taken, but I remember pulling up to the psychiatric hospital, and I remember the programmer was a woman. I even know her name, and she had two what we used to call orderlies. They call them nurses now, but they were male orderlies that she were her assistants. And it was only me and another child there, and his name was Jacob. And it was a very small program. They had very distinct goals that they wanted to reach. And her name was I call her Mrs. W. She was the main programmer, the main coordinator, was a woman. And when I first saw her, she was just so different from any of the people I had grown up with. And I just really looked at her in a certain, she just looked ethereal. She always had on these really nice, she always wore like almost like a satin or silk pantsuit, very kind of 70s, early 80s kind of look. And she had white hair, and she always had her hair pinned up and curled. It always looked very like sophisticated, something like that. But I don't want people just because of the way she looked. She did have that edge where she didn't care what happened to us because she would coordinate torture activities, she would coordinate LSD, electroshock, and her goal, one of the goals she was trying to reach was syncopated dissociation between me and this other child. She wanted us both
What,
to be
what is that?
she wanted us to be able to dissociate at the very same time. So all the activities they were putting in such a systematic manner, it was systematic torture. So they would change the activity every 15 to 20 minutes. It's almost like a school activity where you would hear a bell. It was a form of behavior modification. And they would harm us physically, emotionally, sexually, psychologically, everything. They would deprive us of food, water, you couldn't use the toilet, anything, and also harm us physically at the same time. And what they wanted to see is could we eventually dissociate together? And we did. We ended up being what she considered prize pupils. We took to the trauma from what I was told. We took to the trauma. That means we stopped asking for anything. We stopped crying. We stopped having any reaction to the pain at all, no matter what they did. And that was their goal. They wanted to see what we could do, and we did that. And she was also doing a lot of hypnosis on us. And if I know, because I do sessions now, I work really closely with Misha Johnston, and we've done a lot of work together. She's one of the
Great.
practitioners that I use for my sessions. And um, Mrs. W, she used
Is that how?
hypnosis.
Is that why you're so together?
Um, I would say I would say that I've done a lot of integration work, but at the same time, I feel like once my alters went to sleep, it's been a process for me to kind of meet my original self and act off my original self, who I was supposed to be, because I don't really know who I was supposed to be. I'm trying to figure that out now because they took it from us. They stole our childhood. They stole our original selves by adding alters and adding these other personalities to us in order to do what they want, their agenda for power and control and conquest. So,
Mm. Please, can you talk? I know you've got a lot of information to share,
mhm.
and I'm going to try and not interrupt too much. Um, but can you talk about who they are? Would you say they're reptilians or are working for the reptilian or negative?
No,
Okay.
no, not from what I saw, it was all human hand in what I was doing. Have I met some aliens and other entities? Of course, and they all have their own opinion, they all have their own agendas. I met some Zetas. And you know what was interesting about the Zetas? They came with a reptilian commander, but they were doing this, they were talking to me about the hybrid program. And because I think they used about 16 of my eggs, but only one was viable, and he's still alive. His name, I can't pronounce his name. His name sounds like Klist. It's only like consonants. I can't really pronounce it. And I thought it was really interesting that the Zetas use a term for their hybrids. They call them oblinis. It means sweet soul in their language. And one of my children, he's on a ship with them, and he has emotion. He doesn't really, to me, he doesn't look fully human. If somebody were to see him on the street, you would know that he wasn't a human, but even though he's humanoid. But he still has emotion. He's reached out to me twice, but he doesn't have that, we don't have that connection yet where we can speak because he doesn't speak with his mouth. So it's a little different. But I thought it was interesting is that the Zetas told me that the reason why we have so many issues is because of consent. And we were just talking about that at the beginning before we got on, talking about consent. And I said, well, none of us gave consent. And he's like, yes, you did, because you allow and elect people to speak for you. And they give the consent for you. So they were saying that because we elect people in a government to speak for us, and if they made agreements with them, that's our consent. And I thought I was like, whoa, that makes a lot of sense because we keep saying, no, I don't give consent. I do not consent. And they said, yes, you did by electing these people. I'm not saying that they're saying the truth or not, but I'm just saying it's a perspective that we should consider that, have we elected people that are making these agreements for us and they consider that consent. That's all I'm saying.
And also the birth certificates, that's probably an aspect of it as well.
Yeah, it could be. So it was really interesting to see that, some of the most amazing work I've done is because of the past lives that I was able to discover, doing my sessions. And I saw why they would want me because of all the different things I had been in. It was like, I could see why they would want me and see that they could use me in certain ways and feel like I would be a good asset for them and because of who I used to be. And a lot
That
of
was, yeah, that
a
was
lot
one
of
of the questions
yeah,
for
a
you.
lot of it was, and I don't want to, I never try to sugarcoat it or lie. There's no point in doing that. And a lot of it was darker. I had some darker pasts, and that's the truth of it. But I also had some other, different lives thrown in. But I feel like those dark lives really had an impact on me. So that's why I talk about them. I'm not saying that's the only lives I had. You know, I just, sometimes I meet people and they say, "Oh, I've never been anything bad. I've always been a good person." And I'm just like, I think everybody's been a little bit of everything throughout because I've done, I've kind of looked at some other people and, I've seen people, very small little women and their past lives putting their boot, as a Roman soldier or a Roman general on somebody's neck. It's just really interesting when people, and for me and myself, I'm a small little woman, but I've seen myself be other things that it's just and it's done nothing but open my mind and give me more freedom in my life because I can acknowledge that I'm I don't have to lie and say, "Oh, I'm this or that." No, this is what I really was in the past, and I try to be honest. I put it all in my book. This is who I used to be, and this is who I am now. I'm using all that to do good with it, no matter what I had done in previous lives. And I can't do anything about those previous lives. I can't change it. So,
I think that's really important because a lot of the um new, I don't like the word new age, but a lot of the Love and Light Brigade, which I'm often mistaken as being,
yeah,
um, and I'm aware of that.
yes.
I'm not sure if other people are aware that I'm aware of it, but anyway, I'm not, that I am balanced within knowing that all the negative stuff, um, which is quite a heavy burden to carry, and
Yes.
you know that yourself. But so I'm very interested in your past lives. I kind of have got a good feel of
Hmm.
um, some of your past lives. But do you, and I wanted to ask, are there any you want to share? And do you remember your first life on Earth? Was it in Atlantis or Lemuria or?
Yeah, I don't know if it was my first life, but one of my ancient lives, I was more of energetic form because I was a dark entity. And that's actually life has been probably one of the most impactful on me. Because like, imagine how I feel being who I am now and seeing that I want to help people and help the world and to know that I have been a dark entity. Like you said, it's a heavy burden. And it's a heavy burden for me to be honest about it and authentic with people and not hide from it. Because who would be wanting to admit that, I'm not a religious person, so I don't look at other people's religion. I don't judge other people's religion because I'm not religious, so that would make no sense for me to judge another religion. I've had people recently, say that I'm protecting certain religions that are bad. I said I don't protect any religion because I'm not religious, so it would just not make sense for me to do that. I I barely even call myself spiritual. It's just I feel like I don't want to even want to label. It's just something different because of my experiences with past lives, and I have to use that. I guess I would call it more freedom. I have the freedom. I've given myself freedom by acknowledging my dark past. It's given me more freedom that I could ever even imagine. And
Well
I,
done.
yeah, I want to talk about it because it's so important to me. It was one of my ancient lives, and I was something called a dark entity. And in those times, I would be considered what we would consider like a dark jinn. And I remember I was an early predator. I would find it was and that's what my whole life was about, finding a prey and to infiltrate their life, oppress them, and then wait for them to allow me to take over their bodies, push myself upon them, almost like a form of remote influencing. I push myself, my consciousness and my will on them, enough to where they just give up and say, okay, go ahead and take over. And then once I was able to do that, I would, destroy their lives. And that was my job. And some of the times when I'm able to talk to this thing. It's called, her name is Harlowin, Harlowin the Jinn. And when I'm actually as Harlowin, she talks like she thinks she's doing something good. And she really did believe that. She said, I didn't know I was a bad person, she said, because that's what I came here to do. That was the agreement I made, is to come here and bring an experience of darkness to people that wanted it. And she said, that's what I thought I was supposed to do. I didn't know I was evil. I didn't even know what evil was, she said. She said, I had no concept for evil. I just was what I was. And that's what I came to do. And she said, I did my job well. I brought darkness to people. And if you really ask, I've interacted with a lot of entities, the darkest ones you can think. And if I really connect to a certain part of them and I ask them, where did you come from? They say, we all came from the same place. And they say, you know that. We all came from the same place. No matter what a book says, we're all from the same place. We're all from the same, source or whatever. They really like I've interacted with Source, and Source doesn't call itself Source. It said its name, it said it calls itself no name. It's like it doesn't want a name. And that probably was the most profound experience for me, is to actually bring Source into my body and let it speak through me. And it had a beautiful message. It just said, why do you look for the grander things in life when I can be found, in the small things? Look for me also in the small things, it said. It said, I'm everywhere. I'm small. I'm huge, but I'm also minute. Look for me there. You know, it gives me the chills when I think about being able to do something like that. And but at the same time, this was the weirdest thing. I let Dark Entity speak through me, and then I also let, some of the more religious figures that are well known, like Jesus and, his mother Mary, I let them, and the energy is similar, which is really, I'm sure that would creep people out, that neither one of it didn't feel that much different. And, I kind of always want to know. And it's because they say we're all from the same place. And it was so interesting. It was so interesting to see that. And it's interesting to see myself as a dark entity. And because she gives so much information, she said that in those days they were a parasitic energy. So they traveled by blood. So they're a virus. So early dark entities traveled as a virus. And that's, if you think about it, and now in our time, viruses are so, you know, or have infiltrated our lives. And that's, it was kind of like a demonic entrance, is the virus. And I called myself like red energy, because when I look at myself, it was like a red energetic form. And I didn't really take a physical form a lot. And a lot of dark entities, they don't take a lot of physical form. And I asked them, why not? And they said, in their minds, they say, I'm a god. I come down here and, and when somebody sees a dark entity in their true form, it's not the, um, reaction that the entity wants. They think they're gods and they want to be revered and still worshipped as gods. Some are still stuck in that cycle. And to see somebody's face of disgust or fear, they just said that's not the exact reaction they were looking for. They were looking for reverence. So they don't always come as a physical form, they come more in an energetic form.
And would you say that um, what I'm seeing as you're talking is kind of images of alien parasites coming in to Earth when back in history, God knows when. Um, that's kind of what I'm seeing. Does that
I've seen,
resonate?
yeah, I've seen some more parasitic energies, and some of it's darker, and then some of it can be the person next door. I've been, I've had people that were friends that were almost like parasitic energy, so I think, in my opinion, from what I've learned from entities and even some other beings, is that there is nothing to fear in this world or the next. And I really feel like, you know, fear is what is holding a lot of us back, and everybody's afraid of, oh, they're afraid to say the name of this entity, or afraid to, even think about it. It's all fear. I'm not afraid of any of it anymore. And I used to be terrified my whole life of everything. I was afraid of everything. I was very, very scared of like the paranormal, very scared. In my whole life, all the things that I was afraid of, I figured out I was afraid of myself. That's that was the real thing. That was the real shadow in my room. That was the real thing creeping in the corner. It was me the whole time of who I really was and what I could do. I was afraid of it. I was holding myself back because of fear. And I really tell people there's nothing to fear. You don't have to fear anything. We're stronger than anybody has ever, imagined us to be. I've seen it. I've done it myself. I've traveled to different realms. I've traveled to outer realms. It wouldn't be possible unless we were all, had the ability to do things like this.
And I I would be very similar to you in that I used to have a huge amount of fear
Yes.
until I started doing the shamanic work and started to become more aware of negative energies. I used to see them actually on people's bodies, and they would turn into faces. I'd be looking at kind of demon type energy or
Hmm.
negative spirit or whatever it was. It didn't feel good, but I've become less afraid the more experience I've got, and I really like that that you're not coming from a victim mentality. I really like that. Really honor that, and I feel that you've got a lot of strength with it, and also there was something else I wanted to mention there or ask. Yeah, I really get that it's although I see it as a war between light and dark and between light and dark at the highest level, it's all the same thing. It's all source.
Yeah.
The very darkest to the very lightest, it's all the same energy, just an opposite of itself.
Yes, because how can I consider myself a good person now and then have been a dark entity? How, how? If how would that happen? So I mean, of course I do get, I've experienced it, the criticism, people afraid saying that I'm a Satanist or Lucifer, all the same generalizations. She's a Luciferian, she's a Satanist, she's able to talk to this and that, and yeah, it's the truth, and I don't lie about it. I put it in a book. Anybody can read about it, saying of exactly what I said to these entities and exactly what they said to me. So there's no point for me to lie. I don't need
So,
to. I don't need
so
to.
let me just clarify because
Yes.
the captions, as you were speaking, I caught them there. I was able to read them, and the caption said that you are a Satanist. So can we please just clarify that? Whether
Yes. No, I am not. No, I don't follow any religion. I'm not religious. I don't follow any religion, no matter what it is. I'm not religious at all. So, no, I'm no Satanist, no Luciferian. I've had people, say that about me, but I'm not. I'm not religious at all. I did want to talk about a past life, which is also very important. My name was Antonia. I believe that's what was my name. And I had been widowed, so I had two young children. It was in Italy in the 1400s, and I was kind of living in a village, not really cl kind of far from the hustle and bustle of kind of like the bigger city. And I had, like I said, I was trying to make ends meet. My husband had passed away, and I had started doing work with which would be called like a medium in those times. And so people would come visit me, and I would let them speak to their passed on loved ones, and they would trade and give me fruits, vegetables, whatever we could barter with. And I was doing just fine like that. And I think somebody kind of made a rumor about me, and the Inquisition came through, and they came to my house, and they punched me in the face, and they beat me up and dragged me away and took me away to a dungeon, and they tortured me there for days, and they hung me from the ceiling by my arms. And I didn't they didn't even have the time to even put me on a pyre or light me on fire or anything like that. I actually died from dehydration and starvation because I didn't eat or wasn't drinking anything. And by then I couldn't even feel my arms anymore. My arms were pretty much dead because I was hanging from them in the ceiling. I didn't have any clothes on or anything. But the thing that I remember is I was so angry at and I was angry at men in that life because it was men that did this. And that anger stayed with me. And Mrs. W at the psychiatric hospital, the MK Ultra programmer, she saw that anger, that remaining anger, and she wanted to use it, to be a beta tracker, which would, like I said, they used to call that honeypots. So she saw that and they knew that they could use that. And also me being a medium, a natural medium, they wanted to use all of it. They wanted every piece of me to use that. But I remember being very angry and that my uncle had come, brought my two children, and there was a small window in the dungeon, and he let them say goodbye to me, and they looked in there, and they looked in the dungeon, and they saw me naked, filthy, dying, like hanging from a ceiling. I wish he wouldn't have done that, and I'm pretty sure that damaged them for the rest of their lives. And actually, one of those children, he was my father in this life. So we have unfinished business, and probably in the next life, we'll still have unfinished business to carry on from our relationship. So it could have, who knows what tie-in we have since he was my child in that life and he saw me, dying, for whatever I had done, as a medium, just being who I was. And I feel like that's something that follows me. I kind of, because people would judge and it'd be just like my father did. My father judged who he thought I was. And I do get a trigger when people judge me by just, my story or, based on their own perspectives and they think, I'm a bad person or whatever. Because that's how my father acted when he was alive. He just thought I was disgusting because of what MK Ultra and Monarch did to me. He thought it was disgusting. So it's just a huge trigger for me when I, be judged on something before somebody gets to know you and I think that's a lot of people. We could, especially us being in the programs, already know that we have this, story that could possibly be unbelievable to people, but we really need it to be told. So we, bring our stories out into the world and we take a lot of risk. People need to know that all of us doing this, we're taking a huge risk and we understand how it sounds. It's not like we don't know, we understand how it sounds to other people.
Yeah.
But it is still so
Yeah.
important that it needs to be told and it needs to be told authentically. That's why I don't change it and I don't sugarcoat what I say. I just let it come out exactly how I experience it.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying. I've known for a long time how other people feel about some of the stuff I say and share, I understand. I really understand how unbelievable it does sound. Um, because they're just at a very different awareness, in a very different space of awareness than we are.
Yes.
I think you're very brave for speaking out. I'm definitely going to buy a copy of your book. Um, but please I just talk away.
Okay.
I feel that this is going to be the first of many because I've met so many questions for you and you've so much information.
Yeah.
Uh, but please do talk about the Oblivion, Project Oblivion.
Okay. So how I stumbled upon Project Oblivion is doing my sessions. I tried my sessions with a lot of different practitioners, probably like five or six, because I wanted to not just test myself, but this helps validate their process too, because if I can do the same thing with so many different people, then it's real to me. It was really, it was validated by a lot of different people's, and I record all my sessions and everything. So I have that as evidence of what I've said. But I started doing sessions and I started to work on remote viewing and my spirit hosting. And so it goes a step, spirit hosting just goes a step beyond mediumship. So I was starting that and I started
So,
to
so
infiltrate. Yes, go
let,
ahead.
sorry, Olivia. Let me just get this right. So, because I haven't heard the words or the term spirit hosting before, but is
Mhm.
it similar to trans mediumship where you allow the spirit into your body?
Yes, it's a form of actually the an entity taught me that word. They told me that's what I was. An actual dark entity said that I'm a spirit host. I'm not necessarily considered like a medium. I don't really channel. It's taking something into your cells and connecting to it in a different way, and it doesn't harm me. That's the one thing because it's an ability. So I don't want people to think it harms me, but it doesn't. I can do it for hours, let these things speak through me or even well when I was younger, I was actually taken into I'll talk about that just a second, just so people can understand. When I was done with the psychiatric hospital at 7 years old. We had been there for about 6 months, me and Jacob, the other child, and we had done a lot of different things. And through the hypnosis sessions and things like that, Mrs. W thought I would be good for a different program. So she sent me to another office. And when I arrived at the office, it was a very elderly gentleman. He was very small and frail and, balding. He had little wire rimmed glasses and he had two people with him in this room. And it didn't look necessarily like a medical room. It was more like I don't know, it looked like an attorney's office or something. It was very neutral tone furniture, and he had two people there, a man and a woman, and they were adults, and they kind of looked like they had a little bit of albinism or some kind of condition like that. And the man told me his name was Dr. Green, and I'm not for sure because he never said any other name, but some people think that Dr. Green is a pseudonym for Mangala, and I'm not quite sure if that's. I know him as Dr. Green only, but he instructed these two people, these adults, to do an exam on me. And so they started doing an exam, and it was a weird exam. They were looking in my eyes and my ears, my nose. And then when they looked in my mouth, they told Dr. Green, they said, yes, we can see the thing inside her. And so he took me into something called Project Traveler. And it was kind of like an early, not an early, they've been doing occult projects for a long time, but this is an occult tied. And unfortunately, people need to know that the government is tied to a lot of different occult projects. That's not fantasy. They really do those things. And it's because there's power there. There is power in that dark side that they're looking for. So they were kind of seeking out possessed people, things like that, possessed children. The thing is, though, they were wrong. I wasn't possessed because they want to be able to control whatever's inside me. And what they were looking at was just really me. They were looking at my dark entity past life, the Harlow the Jinn, because it's still at my cellular level. They can see it there. It's still there. It's never gone away because it's just me. It's just so they thought I was possessed, but I wasn't. So they can't necessarily control that. But they did some sensory deprivation experiments, and it wasn't necessarily in water. They had me sit in a dark room. I remember seeing myself with this dark nightgown on, and then they put like something over my eyes, which was really interesting because now when I do sessions, I put something over my eyes even if it's completely darkness. So it's weird that it was a throwback, something maybe I remembered that process to do it again. So I cover my eyes even in the dark, which you wouldn't have to do, but I still do it because I used to do it as a child. And when they put me in this room, they wanted me to spirit host. So they wanted me to just open that portal up inside me, in which I am a portal person. And that's what Dr. Green said, that I'm a portal person. So the portal is inside me. I don't have to open a door. It's already in there. So that's how I'm able to travel to different areas, channel different people, all different kinds of things. I'm able to do all of that.
I heard Drago. I was listening to something from Drago Reed the other day where he was saying, I think it was at the UFO conference in the UK, where he was saying on an interview that he is the portal.
hmm it's an inner portal. It is definitely an inner portal. I'm the portal. And I'm actually something that they call a receiver. So, I don't know all of the different terms, but I know two of the terms. One is an expeller and one is a receiver of energy. I'm a receiver of energy. So I draw the energy inward and that's how I'm able to open that portal. But some people push their energy out, and those are more the people that recruit for psychic assassin work. If you can push your energy out, because some of those people, some of those assets were able to push the energy so hard it almost like you can put needles, you can make a psychic needle and put it in somebody, almost like a psychic voodoo doll. So you can do that. I've seen that. I've seen people do that. You can even put like a psychic needle in someone when they're doing that. So that psychic assassin work is really strong, or psychic attack, something like that. They're using that expeller energy. I'm a receiver, so I'm pulling everything in. But it was an expeller and a receiver together, that's major energy. They want those two types of people together in like a team. Yeah, so that was really cool. Um, so I forgot where I was talking about. Project Oblivion. So after I did
It's
that,
okay.
I was starting to do remote influencing. Now that I'm just a few years ago, I started remote viewing and remote influencing, and I was able to connect to the handler division. And it's really interesting. And that's been some of my major work that I always go back to because I think it's so important for the community to know who the enemy is. In this handler division, there's many of them. It's not just one. I just say handler division because I don't always have every single agency name. I just, it's people want names and details, dates, number. It's very difficult. I don't know if anybody's ever tried to remember their entire life. It's not possible, number one. It's not even possible to remember every minute of every second of your life. You just can't do that, and if people are asking for proof and things like that, it's very difficult to provide that stuff. And you're asking, for proof from something that's happened to somebody when they're 7 years old, especially in like the 70s. I didn't have a cell phone. There was no cell phones in the 70s. It's not like I was out taking pictures of the psychiatric hospital and the programmer while she was torturing me. I don't have a camera to do that. So that's ridiculous to even ask for proof for that. I just wanted to make that statement because I keep seeing people, I want proof, and you can't prove. How can you prove that?
That that those types of people that want proof, even if you provided it, they still would want
That's a
more
good
proof
point. Yeah,
and more proof, and
it
it
probably
would
would
never
never
be
be,
enough.
it would never be satisfying to
Yeah.
them. So I was able to talk, and actually, I found out that there is a program, and especially since I worked in the corporate sector, I remember having people sign these forms before they left, and we called it retirement. We didn't say, "Oh, you're being age regressed and going back home." We never said that. We said you're being retired from the programs, and they would have this stack of papers that they would have to sign in Mars Defense Force. I don't know about other factions, but the faction I worked for, they would come back and they'd sign all these papers, and actually, I was able even to remote view some of the documents and the language and verbiage used in those documents, and you literally have consented before you left the program to lifetime control and monitoring. And if you don't consent to it, then you're at threat of termination, and termination doesn't mean being fired, it means something else, more final. So it's literally, you have literally consented to it. And when, imagine all the forms that we sign throughout our lives, sometimes people just push forms on you, you sign it. And it same thing happens in Mars Defense Force. People were just signing it because you can't say no. If this is the military, you don't say no to a form I pushed in front of you. You have to sign it. So the
Right.
consent's there, and they take that very serious.
And I wanted to ask, so the signing of these contracts to retire people do they let them go, or do they end their lives?
From what I experienced, it was age regression by chemicals and back to their previous life, but with a heavy control and monitoring throughout their entire lives. They consented to it before they left the program. And they consented to the lifetime monitoring by what I've discovered is called the aftercare program. And the aftercare program is all these different handler divisions, and they're all different agencies. They're not just one. And they use the cover of insurance companies, sometimes medical insurance companies, as their front. So you might think it's an insurance company. It's not. They're handler divisions and their aftercare program. And each of the handlers, they're remote handlers, so they're doing their job sitting in their house possibly. And I actually saw my own handler, and he was just sitting in his own house. He lived in Rhode Island, and he was in an upstairs room where his office was, and that's where he did his work. And he was just had a headset on. He was sitting behind a computer. That's how he did all his work. That's how he monitored his assets. And he had 33 assets on his caseload, and he was monitoring each one of them. That was his whole job. And he was a complete
And
jerk. He was not a good dude.
what is the so many questions, Olivia. So what is he what so I'll just reel them off as
Hmm.
um so what the first one is, what is he getting from that? Are they paying
Money.
him millions or
Money.
okay.
It
And
doesn't look like he's a millionaire. And from what I know, these people are mind controlled too. They're from MK Ultra. They were in the same boat as us, but they chose them to be handlers. They're in the handler program. So there's a separate, we're programmers. We were programmed for beta work and other things. They're programmed for handlers to be handlers. All different types of handlers. And he using so many different techniques and machines. And I discovered two of the machines that I saw because when I walked up behind him, so I'll just tell the story how I found him. I went to his house. I used my ability. Remote, I did remote viewing by location and astral travel to go to his house. And I don't, sometimes I don't even know how or or what I'm doing really. I was kind of very in my early stages of trying it. So when I got to his office, I was standing behind him. He could sense me because has telepathy. So he knew I was there. And what was weird is I saw his dead grandmother in the corner and she was staring at him and she didn't look happy. And it was weird because I figured out I'm using the ghost dimension to travel somehow. I'm able to use that because I saw her and she could see me. And I'm like, I'm in the same space as a spirit for some reason. I don't know how I got there, and I don't even know how I do it, so I can't even explain it. And I'm definitely no expert, but when I s-
I can answer that for you.
oh,
So
okay.
it's the astral. I see it as the astral plane, um, which is a level above where we are. So it's when we're asleep and we're on the astral. That is also where spirit live, but that is also how we travel and remote view. It's all the same. It's the same space.
Okay. Okay. So when
That's my understanding of it.
oh, okay. So when I stood behind him, I wanted to just see what he was doing. And I kind of just put my spirit hands on his shoulders and was like trying to see, and he knew. He started typing and he said the asset is combative and that I was presenting will with ill intention and journeying towards memories. And that's how I figured out that they're tracking how many people are remembering, how many people are talking about memories and things. Because he literally, I saw him type it myself. He said, asset is journeying towards memories. He was putting that in his data section on me as his asset that he was monitoring. And he said that measured would have to be taken. And he knew I could see it. And he said that I was going to get tremors and that he was going to impact my spleen. And let me tell you, I did have a swollen spleen about a month after that. I did have a swollen spleen. I even had the medical records for it. So he didn't lie. He said he was going to affect my spleen. He did. So two of the machines that I saw that some of the handlers were using, one of them is called the WASP. And the WASP is something that uses some type of energetic frequency to totally misalign your chakras. And it doesn't sound bad, but it would totally destroy your life. You would never be healthy. You will always be on the verge of like having some type of mystery illness, and no doctor can really diagnose it. They'll give you all these different diagnoses, but it's never going to be something that can be cured because it's not a medical thing. It's an energetic machine that they're using when they feel like you're doing something that you shouldn't be doing. You shouldn't be talking about your memories. You shouldn't be exploring your memories. You shouldn't be, like they said, journeying towards memories like they thought I was. And there's another machine that they use a lot on, they used it on me before. It was terrible. It was called the Green Devil, and it's actually an adrenaline machine. They're somehow able to flood your body with adrenaline. And it doesn't sound crazy, but if you get flooded with adrenaline at the wrong time, talk about like in an office meeting, you will look like you're having some type of mental breakdown because imagine having your whole body flooded with adrenaline, your immediate fight or flight. You got to run, you got to fight something. They do it to you at the most inopportune times too. And it's a way to control you and control your life and keep you nervous and anxious and on the edge because it does bring very extreme anxiety if you have that amount of adrenaline. So it's a very effective machine. Those are a couple of the machines that they use. So when I saw that handler, I started doing more work with various other handler divisions and other just figuring out what they were doing. And I actually met a group called the Princeton, I think it was the Princeton Agency. They're one of the handlers, and I think they were in Georgia. But I feel like they had gotten to a point where they got tired of us being there. And I started to get infiltrated in some of my sessions. And one of the sessions I was talking with handlers and I was getting very close to getting very good information. And I saw a hand coming through the front of my head, fingers in a hand. And if I wouldn't have come out of that, I don't know what would have happened because I discovered that it was a mercenary group called Ronin, and they're psychic assassins. And if I wouldn't have pulled out, I don't know if I would have had some type of aneurysm or something. A hand was literally coming through the front of my head. And and in one of the most recent sessions I did, I was remote viewing, and I actually saw a gentleman, I saw him and he saw me. He was sitting in a chair and he was doing the same thing I was. I was viewing and he was viewing me. And he had on, just like I do, he put something dark over his eyes, but he had sunglasses and he was sitting back in his chair. And I kind of tried to figure out, he was somebody that they actually have a remote viewing group. I'll call them counter remote viewers. And they were out of Russia. And they were actually created all the way back under Stalin. And he was still interested in what I was doing, which I thought that was weird. But Project Oblivion is coming from the highest of the higher ups of these handler agencies. And they've said that they can't allow this anymore, that we've kind of all what they considered gone wayward. And not we're not under control like we've been. And they also said it's because the way many of us are coming out and speaking that we're becoming more rational. Our stories are becoming more rational and we're becoming more believable. They said earlier they didn't really worry about us because everyone thought we were crazy and liars and that everybody was talking about aliens and things like that. They thought that wasn't where the real progress was, but they said a big threat is to anybody that was in these programs like MK Ultra, Monarch, Secret Space Program. They said this is a huge threat because if people really start to believe this, it could, shake up the whole world if they found out what actually was happening to children. They can't have it. They said they can't have it. It's not going to be allowed. And they've been given the green light on this Project Oblivion, and they said pretty much to destroy the whole disclosure movement in any way they can. And one of the big targets they told me was podcasters. They said podcasters will be one of the major targets because they have given us a platform and to, push the disclosure movement even further. And it's the truth. If we didn't have podcasters, my story would only be in like print. It wouldn't be, out on different, platforms and things like that. So in a way that I see what they're saying. They saying that it's just we're getting too, doing too much and helping too many people, and more people are waking up because of just what we're saying.
Mm.
Maybe one person catches this episode and that person hadn't heard it before, and then they kind of become awakened to the real atrocities going on in this world. They
Yeah.
are using children for MK Ultra. They are using for their purpose of power, control, and conquest. They're basing it off the lives of children that they're harming just to have that. So it is a real thing. They really are trying this, and if you all you have to do is look and see what's happening recently in the disclosure movement. Podcasters are being targeted, but people in general are being targeted. Anybody that was
Mm.
connected to the programs. One of the sessions I did, I actually was able to just get a flash of a list, and this list was so long. You could see names, and most of the people I didn't know who they were because I don't know everybody. I just know a few of the people in the community, but the list was huge. And these are the people that are going to be targeted, they said, and they have a feeling that they're going to be able to push the disclosure movement back, years if they're successful in what they're doing. And in a way, and they said they're going to bring a lot of infighting and a lot of from what my
Mm.
father has told me, he said the major theme of Project Oblivion is betrayal. And because betrayal is so destructive, like if you have a good friend in the community, they betray you, it can really pull you down and push you away from your mission and your work. It is really destructive, betrayal. Being betrayed by people in your own community is very destructive. And they're going to use that against us. They're going to use the infighting. They're going to use ego. Every human emotion they will use against us. And I wish people would remember that human emotion is a strength. It's not a weakness. So we can't let them use it against us.
Oh,
We were born to and bred and controlled and programmed to not have emotion, and we finally are getting it back. We shouldn't see it as a weakness. It is definitely a strength for us.
and do you remember the names in the book or the list?
I remember a couple of them.
Okay.
I remember a few of the names. I haven't told them that I saw their names because, especially it might be somebody I don't know well, and that'd be kind of weird if I did that. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, I just want to say it's probably everyone. If you're a podcaster and you've got information that you've been giving to the disclosure movement, you will probably be targeted by Project Oblivion and by the handlers. And
And
I actually spoke with, okay, so I'm not really I wasn't at Montauk. I don't really get into like time travel, things like that, but this is a real experience. This really happened. I was taken somehow to this base and it was about 15 years in the future. 12 to 15. And there was a general there, and he said he can't tell me his name because he said it's not time for me to know his name, and it's not time for me to know the name of the base. But he gave me directions, and he told me about there's a revolution on the horizon, and they need us. We're all in a rough spot in the future, he said. It's bad. He said if we don't do something, that we won't have a future. So he told me that I had to go back and tell everybody that,
And
and it
was
was
this a good
really,
guy?
his name, he was a general.
Well, but so he was on the negative.
No, he's on the good side.
He's on the good side. Okay.
He's a revolutionary leader. And he's like, it's like the future disclosure movement, but they're now like a faction and a revolutionary faction. And he told me I had to come back here, and I was really nervous. I said, I'm nobody. I can't, form any groups, or I'm just not that type of person. And he said, your job, the mouse, is to go back and tell the world what I said. And he said to build the network, maintain the network, and protect the Olympia group. So he's saying that we have to come back here and build our network together. Everybody talking, everybody being on each other's shows, getting information out, and maintaining that network without,
But, but how do we do that, Olivia? Because I know that we've been infiltrated.
yes, we have.
So
So,
how
and I don't, he didn't
who,
really give that instruction. He told me there's nobody else and there's no one coming to save us. He said,
but,
you guys are the white hats. He said, there's nobody else. It's
but
just it. He
who
said,
do
it's
we?
you.
Yeah,
It's you sitting there right now. It's
yep,
me sitting here. He
yep.
said, there is no one else. He said, that's it. He said,
It's
if
up
you
to
guys
us.
don't do
Yep.
something, he said, there
But
is no future.
I like who do we trust? Because there's it's
I know.
difficult to know who to trust.
It's very difficult, and we're all gonna experience the betrayal because I know that's the theme of it. You're gonna experience it, and it's gonna be up to us to figure out how to deal with it. I've experienced it myself, and it's very difficult still. And I just have to take time out and just process in my own head, because it hurts. A lot of betrayal hurts. But I was gonna say that the Olympia group, from what I know, is this group of children that all volunteered to come here at this time. And they're about 9 to 20. And this was a couple years ago. So they were around that age. They're a little bit older now, probably. So I got this information a couple years ago. But these Olympia group, they're a hacker unit. Because he said in the future, all the war isn't really fought with, hands and weapons. He said it's all technology. He said everything's technology. We need them, he said, to turn the tides of the war. So he said, go back, you protect the Olympia group at all costs. He's saying protect these children at all costs. There is no there the mission is to protect these children and make sure they stay alive for the future because they are the future for us. So,
And
and I think it's an
I'm
important message. I think it's a
yeah.
high, no matter what people believe, and if they think that meeting this general was fake or not, the message is so real and it's so important. Protect children, build our network here, maintain our network, and protect children. And so Project Oblivion, they know what we're
Can I
trying to
just
do.
ask you very quickly?
Yes.
Are these children? Are they more advanced than us?
I don't feel that they're more advanced, but I feel like they have a specific purpose. And I was able to view one of them, and one of them was kind of like a hybrid starseed type, but not all of them. They're all a mixture, but they're hackers and their brains are like computers. I'm sure you know some of these kids that are on the computer all day, and my own children, now they're on the computer. I'm like, get off the computer, but something about it is this is going to help turn the tides of the revolution for us in our favor because everything's fought with technology. And they're going to be older by then, but this is what they said. We're kind of like setting the stage. At our age, we're kind of setting the stage for them to take on, you know, our our work. So our work is more to set them up and keep them safe and make sure we're protecting the Olympia group for the future world. And it's such an important message, and it's going to be the most difficult task is to stop, you know, s s us to stop destroying ourselves. And we were all on a path of destroying ourselves because that's what we're programmed for, is the omega programming, is to not be successful and to not make everything, perfect.
Mm.
And some people say, oh, I don't feel it, I'm never targeted, I never feel. And that's great, because I'm glad you're not targeted. But there's a lot of people that are, and you never know, sometimes something you don't know is targeting is.
I have a question for you about that.
Hmm.
Because I'm a channel for the Pleiadians, and I went to see someone. I was doing a talk years ago in the UK somewhere, and the person after me was also a Pleiadian channel. Um, I think it might have been a few weeks after. But I was talking to him, and my understanding at the time was that anyone who's genuine, um, whether they're a channeler or um, doing the work that we're doing, um, especially in the public eye. Anyone doing the work in the public eye is a target, and
Yes.
I still don't really understand. Not really. I don't understand how anyone who's genuine is not a target. I don't under. Is there like
I don't have an answer to it either, because I wonder that myself. I'm like, if they have real, why wouldn't they be targeted? But maybe there's something that we don't see. Maybe it's more of like a, interrelational thing. Maybe their relationships are targeted, they just don't realize it, or, you know, who knows? And I never want to say, oh, that person's not targeted, so they're infiltrated. No, that's not the truth. Because that's not the case. That can't be everybody. I wouldn't say that, because I w I already, get that sometimes. And, if you don't feel targeted, then you're probably an asset or an agent. And that's a bad road to go down. We don't want to go down the road of everybody being called an agent or an asset, because they haven't experienced something as bad as the other. Everybody experiences it different. I've experienced, most of my targeting is health. It's health targeting and body targeting. So I get that more than other targeting. And that might not be a big deal to some people. Some people might think that something else is worse. So it definitely depends on your own personal experience and personal perspective. Because I feel, to me, that was some of the worst targeting, is the health targeting, because it's so hard to fight it, fight back. But, others might have a different opinion on what they think is the worst. So I
for
think we should
me?
respect each other in terms of your own personal experience and perspective. If you feel like your targeting was the worst, it is to you. And same thing for me. I felt really bad.
For me, it's health as well and my
Okay.
energy, because the less energy I've got, the less work I can do, the less
Yeah.
podcasts, the less conferences, the less energy I've got to do anything. And I've got several conditions that all affect my energy. I've got diabetes, I've got fibromyalgia, I've got underactive thyroid, and um, uh, something else that I forget what it's called.
Yeah. The handlers told me they would be targeting thyroids for some reason. I think that's in my second book. I think they're
Uh,
and fibromyalgia is one of the symptoms of heavy targeting, according to the handlers, because it's a more like a mystery illness. And most likely they probably would say it was a machine or something that they're using on you. I've seen it myself. What they're saying, they're using just a computer. They have us somehow hooked up, and they said that you don't think you're being monitored. Everything in your house has monitored you. You have a TV, you have a router, everything. They said, the handlers told me, you're not hidden anywhere. Don't think you are. You can't put your whole house inside of a Faraday cage or something. No, you're not hidden anywhere. They know everything. They know. And so I become more freer in my language, because I'm like, well, they can hear everything anyway, so it doesn't really matter. They've heard everything I said, everything I've done. They're monitoring me. They're writing everything down, taking notes on what I'm doing. So they know
yeah.
everything. But I have experienced, like, them really trying to harm me. So it's important. I think it's important. Project Oblivion is super important for people to realize. I've had it myself. Like, people, I don't talk about it a lot, but I've had some, serious targeting with it. And I just keep moving forward and telling people about it, and it's just not to scare them, because I don't want people to be afraid of it. I want us to be able to move past it and to stay strong, and really, like the general told us to do, is set the stage for these children, for the next generation, set the stage for them. And we try to ask, like, well, how can we do that? They even said that even one child might be a teenager and might catch episode on YouTube or something and might plant a seed at some point to, because a lot of them don't know that they are the Olympia group. They don't know. And they actually showed the handlers, I saw that the handlers were going to be targeting these children because they know who they are already. It's like they already know that they're going to be important for the future. So
And I think what you're saying is so accurate and so important because I've come to realize now, looking back at my childhood, that they knew who I was before
they
I
do.
did. And
You know who else told me that is I think it was the Zetas, because we were asking them, did you make contracts? Did you come down here and why are you picking up people and harming them? They said, we're not doing anything. We're only, we only pick up our own people. So they told me that they only pick up their people, which means other Zeta, they think when we're born, they know who their people are, they said. They said, as soon as you're born, we know where you went and where you are. So they're saying they're the people that they're well, I don't even say abduction. I don't know what they're doing, but when they come and pick up people, they said those are their people that they're picking up. They're not picking up anybody else's people. I thought that was interesting that they think that oh, you used to be a Zeta, you're one of because I used to be a Zeta in a past life. I was a Zeta shaman when back in the way ancient past we had religion and I was one of their people. So that's why they come and they feel kind of like resonate with me because I used to be one of them. So
are you still there, Olivia?
yes, yes, I'm here.
Oh, great. Okay, I thought I'd lost you for a second. I wanted to ask you, around 20, around COVID time, I might as well just say it. Um, I was really getting targeted, and I was in a relationship, and I'm not going to go into it in the details, but I discovered that he was an agent, and and I looked at him one day, and I saw reptilian eyes,
Mm,
um, and he left shortly after that. They pulled him out, um, but and then there was a lot of I got was really getting targeted very heavily. I was having a lot of voice to skull, and I had one experience where um a really heavy voice to skull, the worst I've ever had it. And I was going to sleep one night, and they said to me, "We're going to give you a condition that will feel like 1,000 bee stings on
mm.
your private parts or your genitalia." And I've only just started speaking about this publicly, but the next morning I woke up and I was so sore, and that condition lasted for about a year. They didn't know what it was. Eventually, I went to the doctors and they didn't know what it was. And sometimes it kind of flares up every now and again. But also at the time, I did notice I was getting very targeted. I was being watched and followed and all kinds of things when I started the podcast because when COVID came out, I had a lot of anxiety and I went into the garden and I hadn't channeled the Pleiadians for a while, but I did because of my anxiety. I went into the garden and channeled them. And I got a whole load of information. Around the same time, I started to get heavily targeted, um, especially by motorbikes. I would be
Oh,
followed a lot by motorbikes.
are the Pleiadians your original people
Yes, I would,
or one
and
of your past groups?
yes, and also live.
So, okay. So you're one of their people and that's why they feel connected to you.
Yes, I
Okay.
had in a shamanic journey, I was shown a past life where I came from the Pleiades star system, but also have connection to the same connection to Lyran.
Okay, my people are Zetas and Mantid. And Mantid definitely uh, it's been a very eye-opening experience to see myself as a Mantid being, a male Mantid, yeah. And the Zetas I was there's there I know they get a bad rep, but um when I'm thinking about my people, they were like very way in the ancient past, they were very spiritual and they were looking towards something and their mistake and this is what they told me. The mistake they made is in their search for perfection, they lost their heart center because they did wanted to be advanced too much in technology and now civilization is dying, and that's why they've done so many hybrid work with their own people. Like they chose me, they said, because I was a Zeta as one of the person that could contribute to their hybrid program, the Ablinis. So they made it made a lot of sense that, oh, they're
Yeah.
picking people because, I'm, part of them on the inside, and, they can
Hmm.
sense that. And then my eggs would be viable for their work, so
It's not, yeah, absolutely. It's not
yeah,
random. It's not
yeah.
random at all. It's like the royal family are very selective who they
Yeah.
marry because,
And yes, and I wouldn't want to take away from anybody that had a bad experience with that. And because I understand that there are some people that do have bad experiences. And I'm not going to say it was pleasant when I had my eggs retrieved, because it was, it's kind of scary. You're a child, and, there's, Zetas at the bed, and then there's also a reptilian commander. But, they haven't harmed my hybrid child. He's alive and he's doing well. So, and they say that he's the future for them. Those hybrids are their future. They feel like everything else is slipping away from them, and they had to take drastic measures in order to stay alive. And I'm not making excuses for them. That's just the truth of what they told me.
yeah, I've heard the Pleiadians say to me that they also that the Pleiadians also made mistakes as well in the past.
Yeah.
So
And it's important to say that, because every then means every, being has made mistakes, like just like humans. We're all doing it, we're all learning, and, on our own paths, and your own experience, your own perspective.
can you talk more about the Project Oblivion and
Yes.
the kind of the technology and who they're using it on and what their um and you've explained what their agenda is, why they're doing it, but like what technology are they using, and who are they targeting? Like what is their like what do they actually do? Because I know they're using voice to skull and
Yes, they're using a lot of voice to skull. It's in the remote handlers. So, sometimes we think about, these handler divisions, and you think that might be a scary person like lingering in the alley. No, they're a bunch of nerds sitting behind a computer. This is how they're targeting us. Some people, from what I've seen, they have like there's some implants in the body, but then also they're using the house, like frequencies of the house, to harm people. A lot of it, I think I I I saw for myself, it was an implanted thing inside me where they're able to access certain parts of me. Um, it was really weird. I had it was my own fault. I accidentally told somebody about my book that probably I shouldn't have told. And literally 20 minutes after I came home from that, I was making tea, and my entire calf shattered. And it was just pooled blood for no reason. And I actually thought I had been shot. Like I thought I had been shot somewhere. And I was crawling around on the ground and getting ready to go to the hospital. I even told the people at the hospital I thought I'd been shot. So that, they looked me over. There was no bullet wounds or anything. But it was so weird that it was such a quick, attack, like boom, you know, just really quick and out of nowhere. No one gets an injury like that just from making tea in the kitchen. It's just not normal. So for me, that was a real eye opener. I'm like, oh, okay. This is, and obviously when I say things, it's like I'm still a human. So I'm like, still thinking about it. Like when I first talked about Project Oblivion, I didn't, I'm still in a learning process myself to learn things and to see things. So, but that sometimes that experience was like, whoa, this is really real. They're really trying to stop us from, you can't talk about it with other people. They don't even want you thinking about it. They don't want you thinking about your own experience. Isn't that crazy to think that they want you to actually stop remembering your own experience? That's how serious they are about it. They want you to just go back to being they pretty much said just go back to sleep. Don't be awakened anymore. You've gone wayward. You're not under control. This is what they said, that we're not under control anymore. We're not being controlled as much as they thought we could. And that was probably their ego that made them think that they had us so under control, because they haven't seen us in our rare form of human survival. They haven't seen how we can survive. We survived MK Ultra. Not everybody did. Not everybody could survive that. Not every person in the world could survive that, of what us children went through in some of those programs. So they should know that we're a lot stronger than we seem. If we can survive that, they forget that, I think, in their mind because they think their ego gets away with them and then they think they're so strong and they have us tied up in so many different things, which is true. They have a lot of impact on us, but we're not what they thought. We're definitely different, especially women just from what
There's
I've
this,
seen in my own eyes and with my own experience, the things that women can do, people have no idea, and both good and bad. They have no idea what women are capable of. We have to
yeah.
come here after the programs and act like weak little girls, when we know we've seen things that can be done in other areas, and we have to come here and play this role for other people to be comfortable. I have to be this mouse for other people to be comfortable with who I am.
Well said, Olivia. There's an aspect of that within me, um, because and one of the reasons is because I'm so quiet most of the time. Um, but there's a couple of things that was coming to mind. So the um, and I'm even getting targeted as we speak. So my mind's gone blank again. But the um, yeah, my mind's gone totally blank. But there was something else I wanted to ask you about spontaneous combustion. Do
Mm.
you think that is a form of targeting?
It's so possible. It's completely possible that that's something that, because something that hits you quick, just like I said when my calf shattered just from making tea. Something that I've experienced, like the directed energy, and it's so quick. Seconds, you're just standing there and then you're on the ground. And it was very strange. It was even the hospital was like, "What happened? What were you doing? You weren't in like a 10-mile marathon." No, I wasn't doing anything. I was making tea. I hadn't done anything that day. It's really very strange. And I'm sure there's people that, could put it towards, oh, it's just possible this happened. Yes, anything's possible. But for us that have grown up in MK Ultra and in this community, we know that there's other things behind the scenes that are impacting our entire lives and every aspect of your life. And it's because they know that we've kind of broken through a wall in a way of where people are starting to pay attention to this. And you are seeing it more in the mainstream media. I'm seeing the world's MK Ultra in the more of the mainstream media with more podcasters that have millions of followers. They're talking about MK Ultra. That was the goal, and it's starting to happen. So that's why they had to implement Project Oblivion so quickly to stop it. Because more people that get taken down, and even some of these big podcasters, they're infighting. So it's not like out of the question that we would do it at this level because they're doing it. You're seeing it every
Yeah,
day. Two big, huge podcasters fighting, and one is on this person's side, and the other one's it's crazy.
and it's also creating a divide as well because their followers are,
Oh my goodness. Yes.
yeah,
And then the followers attack each other. And then
yes,
it just, I mean, I can see it and I understand, but that's why I think it's important to talk about it so people, and so I was saying, I think I was on Twitter or something, Twitter X, and one of the big podcasters was saying what had happened to them, and all I did was put Project Oblivion in a comment, and my account got immediately banned. And then I got banned on TikTok for saying making videos about Project Oblivion and things like that. So it's definitely something that they don't want to see out there.
mm,
And that's because they said that they want us to go back to people thinking that we're crazy and to thinking that we're LARPers and liars. They said that was a better situation for us, whatever. But that's not where we want to be. We're very much more evolved than that. We have a lot to say, and people need to hear it. People need to start opening their eyes to what's really happening in the world and what's happening behind the scenes. There's a
mm.
war going on behind the scenes, and we're worried about just, stuff that's from social media, which really drives me nuts when people take social media so serious that
Yeah,
one person makes a meme about some other country or something, and then they take it and they created a whole narrative in their mind over it. And I'm like, this is insane. This is just crazy.
it really is. It's crazy. Yeah, I'm often just observing all of that stuff that I'm not getting involved even when it's friends. I mean, I've two friends that are going at it on social media, and really,
It's so
um,
hard
yeah.
because it's like, oh my goodness, because it's like you can see Project Oblivion's like impact on forcing people to, you have to take a side. You have to be on this side, or you're the bad guy. If you don't take my side and you don't believe the same thing I believe, then you're the bad guy. And I'm like, I would just make a statement now and say, I'm on, the side of, children and side of keeping them safe. That's the side I want to be on. That's the side I want to be on is that for them to have a future, you know, even for my own children, I want them to have a future. That's
So
the side I want to be on. That's the side I want to be on.
yeah, there was it's coming back to me what I was. There's a couple of things I wanted to share with you. I met I've known Veronica Bartolini for I think since 2019 or 2020 online, and then I
Hmm.
got the opportunity to meet her at the Full Disclosure Now conference in Florida in July by
Oh, okay, awesome.
yeah, and
Did you see anything weird? Because
well,
the handlers told me that they were sending some agents there to
well,
interact with you
there was
all.
a lot. I was in a very weird energy for the whole
Yeah,
thing.
I thought so.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of stuff going on, and I was really affected by it. And I'm just kind of getting back to normal now. I was when I came back for 3 months, after at least 3 months, I was in a very depressed state, and I also always know I'm being targeted when I get depressed because I'm not, I'm not
Yes.
naturally like that. I get very down, very low energy, like mentally, like
Yes.
really, like just, I, yeah. And so anyway, I was talking to Veronica a couple of times, and she said to me that I have that I am a super soldier, which I do believe. And some of my memories will start to come back before the end of this year, but I am holding them at bay. I do also believe that my mum was involved in MK Ultra, um, and I believe that I've been in some of the programs. And I've had experiences with I had my partner is very similar to you, and he's very unique in that he also remembers his past lives. I don't know if you've seen him. He does come on a lot with me on lives
Oh,
um,
okay.
when he's here, but he has memories of being going rogue on ship in a past life, where he became very negative or bad or whatever you want to call it. Um, and that was through anger and rage because things went wrong, and he remembers some of the wars and stuff. So, and I've not really heard that from anyone else except for him and you, where you were saying earlier. But I do believe that I've been in some of the programs that I don't remember. And I've had experiences that I've spoken to him about that when I was getting targeted here after the conference, I was seeing very clearly because I've come to understand that a lot of my psychic images I get are actually I'm remote viewing. It's not just psychic stuff I'm seeing, it's remote viewing. Um, and so I had this experience, Olivia, where I was being targeted and I called Dennis. I called my partner, and I was talking to him, and I was explaining everything I was seeing. And I was in an underground base. I might have been Area 51, I'm not 100% sure, but I was seeing a soldier, a military soldier, who was targeting me, and he was in the corner. He was targeting me with a rifle or some type of gun, and then he was holding it to my head, which I've had a few times over the years. And then I could see him in the corner of it was like a cell. They put him in a cell, or he was in the cell, and then he was in the corner, and he was kind of hunched over, sat down, and he was kind of rocking on his knees, holding his knees into his chest and rocking. And he had very short hair, green type military um, uniform on, soldier uniform, and he was kind of dissolving emotionally,
Hmm.
because I was talking to him and saying, you know, this is you're going to get some comeuppance for this, Then I could see in the corridor, and it looked like a cell. And then in the corridor, the door was open, and in the corridor, I could see a man, another soldier coming around the corner that felt like he was really aggressive and very much in control and wanting to take charge of the situation and get me out of there. And I heard an alarm go off when I turned up as well, which is why the other guy who came in. And then I kind of backed off when the alarm was hit. You know, I could hear it. I could hear the
Hmm.
alarm going off. Um, what's your thoughts about that?
So many things it could be. Do you feel like you might be remote influencing? You might be remote viewing situations? But,
Yes, yeah.
uh,
I think that experience was definitely remote viewing. It was just too real, too strong, too vivid, too like I was really there.
yeah, and you probably are. You probably by locating, like, because I've recently I started, practicing remote influencing so I can kind of get into bases and get information for people, in terms of like documents and things. And I just want to say, no, I don't feel bad breaking into a base and remote influencing because these people are the same people that hurt children. So I don't care. I don't feel bad pushing them. Some people criticize that, but these are people that are working for these agencies, they're handlers. So I broke into a couple of bases and they're very well protected. They have their own what I call the counter remote viewing teams that soon as I started going towards this base in Australia, I saw this huge, huge eye. Like the entire base was covered by an eye. And it's because they were looking at me coming towards them. They knew what I was doing. They keep an eye watch, so they saw me coming towards this base. And so I had a hard
I,
time getting
I,
in. I had to come from all the way from the bottom and go up into the room. The room I remembered had red numbers or red digits over the door. It was locked down, so I had to go underneath and get in. And then once I was in there, I had to find somebody that was kind of off task and not doing their job. So that was the person that would be open to being influenced a bit. And it was a woman, and she was thinking about this guy that hadn't texted her. She was kind of off focus. So I was like, that's the target. That's the person that could be used. So I did this thing where I walked up behind him and I always put my spirit fingers on their shoulder and kind of push into him. And it sounds crazy that I can do this, but it's similar to what I did as a jinn. I pushed my will onto people, so that's why I still have the ability. So I don't want, it's something that still was inside me. That's why it comes more naturally to me. It doesn't really necessarily have to be trained heavy. So I put my fingers on her and I had her start typing. I wanted to see different project names, and she gave me some project names like Light Switch, Project Grand Dame, Project Stranger, Project Barnstorm, things like that. But they caught on very quickly. And I think they have there has to have some way for them to monitor their workers' frequency or energetic levels or something, because they knew I was inside her for some reason. And a message came across her computer screen and it was in these big green letters and it said break screen. And as soon as she saw it, she jumped back out of her chair. And as soon as she did that, I jumped out of her body. Like I could feel myself being thrown back. And it's like they had caught me right away. And then I was back in my bed within seconds. I had to get out of there pretty quickly. So they're on the lookout for us. That's not unknown that people do this. They even told us they tell me it's not unknown what you're attempting. You're not the first to attempt this, we see this kind of all the time. So and it's varying degrees of the remote viewers that are like me. Some are stronger, some are weaker. And you never know. Usually they're in groups too. I'm one of the only people that goes by myself. They're usually in a group, like sometimes three, sometimes five. So working together, they're going to be a lot stronger than a single person coming in trying to, get information. They're able to push you back. When I was trying to look at some records on Mars, there was five of them, and I was trying to get in this room, and they made like these bats in the astral, and it doesn't sound like it's serious. It is. If they hit you with it, it feels real. I even felt like I was in pain when I woke up, like because they hit me and hit me with these bats in the astral. Like we were both in these different remote viewing situations, and they saw and they said, "You can't come in here," and they said, "You got to go." And so they did that, and I felt the pain when I woke up. So it's definitely something so interesting to feel the energy of that when they just made it in their hand out of, their mind.
Wow. We've you wow. Um, the the I was going to say that I when I first began to channel the Pleiadians, I had a lot of spiritual stuff going on, and very um like I could see the Pleiadians physically.
Hmm.
It was just like seeing, like you were saying, you could see your dad. It was um like seeing spirits, but very clearly. And um sorry, I know I'm being targeted right now because I keep forgetting what I'm going to say, and that's one of the things that they do as well. Um, but um, oh yes, thank you. So um, the one of the things I was shown very early on is that there is a large book that has like it looks like a black leather um, cover on it, but it's a very large book. It's huge, and it has all the names of the star seeds on Earth, and also linked to that there is some type of etheric technology that we are implanted with. And it must be operating on a higher dimension because it's not a physical thing. It's more of a higher dimensional technology that's implanted.
I've seen the book, but my one of my spirit guides named Zaldor, he uses that book as a way to communicate because I'll meet him in the Garden of Knowledge, and because that's where we meet. And when I go there, he has that black book, and he'll tell me to turn it to with telepathy. He'll say turn it to a certain page, and then words appear on it, and that's how he gives messages. I think this book is kind of like a conduit or something for a lot of different things because I remember seeing a black book and he'll say page 43 or whatever, and then he'll there's a message there for me. You need to do this, this, and this, or this is going to be happening, something like that. So it's interesting that the black book plays a part in a lot of different people's experience.
Yes, I've yes, it is. And um they also said to me that they we get implanted from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime with an implant that has to be etherical on a higher
Hmm.
dimension. But this implant, it follows it stays with us from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime. So it's a way of them tracking us and knowing, also knowing who we are, and our blood type, our DNA, because we're all from the star seeds are all from somewhere else, whether it
Yes.
be Pleiadian or Zeta or Mantis or wherever. But they told me that there's two implants. One is it's not even an implant; it's some type of advanced technology that is implanted inside us. And the negative agenda is doing it, but also the positive agenda. So there must be
Hmm.
two, you know, one positive and one negative.
Hmm.
Um, which
I have about five implants, and some are more like etheric tethers. They're not necessarily in the body. They're like on the energetic kind of like there's like I saw myself there's like this energetic circle around my body, and they were implanted into that etheric layer.
exactly,
Them,
yeah,
so it wasn't kind of so when people saying, "Oh, you know, you need a picture of your implant, you need to do a medical exam." It's not in my body. They're not going to see an etheric tethered implant on a CAT scan or something. They're not going to see that, you know. Not
exactly,
every,
yeah,
so it's not all like just inside the body. They're on the outside layers too. There's so many different layers for them to attach to.
yeah. Well, I what time is it now?
Almost, yeah. We've been on for a
10,
couple of hours. Yeah.
yeah, 9, 10, 2 hours.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was a great
Yeah,
discussion.
yeah, I'd really love you. I'd be delighted if you would come back.
Sure. Okay. Sounds good.
Maybe in January, at the end of
Yeah,
January, or
sounds good.
yeah. Thank you so much, Olivia. And
All right,
please,
thank you.
will you talk about your books and how people can find you if
Yes.
you do services or
So I have two books out and they're both on Amazon. One is the first book is called Gray Mouse. It was my introductory book. It's called Gray Mouse, Sex, Space, and Mind Control. My second book is called Gray Mouse Purgatory. It Gray Mouse Purgatory, I really put a lot of my heart into that book and heart and soul is on those pages. So it definitely was very authentic experience for me. And I'm actually working on a third book, including Project Oblivion and some new experiences, and then also a fourth book on the paranormal. And I also have two blogs that I do weekly writings on. One is on Substack and one is on Medium, and they're both under Olivia James, the Gray Mouse. My TikTok got banned, so I haven't really put a lot of time into that or the Twitter because I keep getting banned on there. But I do have a Facebook page, and if somebody wanted to find me there, they could. So those are some of the areas where I have information. I also have a YouTube channel, and I put a lot of information from my books about different programs and things. I put it in short video form for people that aren't readers, so you can go on my YouTube, Gray Mouse Chronicles, and get the information for free in video format too. So it's the information is out there if you're seeking it.
Um, and do you have a website?
No, not currently, just the books and the blogs and Facebook, that kind of thing.
I think Substack is, I'm really happy. I'm really impressed with Substack because so far I haven't come across any type of censoring.
Me
So,
neither. It's been
yeah,
okay. It's been so far, it's been okay.
yeah, fingers crossed it stays that way.
Yes, yes. I'm sure
Yeah.
they'll catch up to us eventually, but
Yeah.
for right now, we'll get out as much information as we can.
So, um, yeah, I'm definitely going to order your books. I'm going to go on Amazon. I'll probably order them over the Christmas period. Um, and yeah, so thank you everyone for tuning in and look out for Olivia James on my Substack Soma Arar in January. Or if you come and sign up now actually to my Substack Soma Arar, and also please do come and sign up to Olivia James's Substack as well. Um, because it's so important to get out the information. I know a lot of it. I understand how it's a lot of it does sound unbelievable if you're not already aware of things that are going on. But this is some of the darker aspects that we have to deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah, we
Um,
can't avoid it. Yeah, we can't avoid the darkness anymore. It has to come to light and be shown. Yep.
Thank you so much, Olivia.
Yeah,
And
thank you for having me.
yeah, I very much look forward to seeing you again very soon.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So everyone listening, please go check out Olivia James and go and order her books. I love you guys. Have a beautiful Christmas and I'll see you all soon.